Alright guys, TouchRabbit here, back again today with some more Rostermania stuff, and oh my god, has a lot of stuff happened over the past 24 hours. Yesterday, the 19th of June, was a really big day because the Rostermania period ends today. Of course, these rosters will have to stick for Miami, which is the CDBL Finals, effectively the Pro League Finals, and of course the Call of Duty World Championship in August in Los Angeles. So, of course, a very big roster change period, and yesterday a lot of the changes were being kind of finalised because you've got to get things, well, at least decide what changes you're going to make by the end of yesterday so you can get everything signed by today is ideally the plan for a lot of these teams. So we're going to go through as much as I know hopefully a lot of stuff to share with you. Big news is that Huke is very, very likely, as far as I understand it, going to be going to Splyce on a loan deal. So keep that very much in mind as we go through the course of this video. I will get to that down the line. Luminosity have also announced their team, but I want to go through that in more detail in probably a couple of days' time after all the Rostermania stuff's over. I'll make videos going through every single new team. And if you want to know exactly which teams are going to be new, it's likely to be all of these. The top 5 seem to be staying the same as far as I understand it, so, 100 Thieves have no reason to change, the other teams have no real reason to change. eUnited could have considered it, but from what I understand, they are going to be sticking now. So, the entire rest of the Pro League are going to be changing, it does seem. So let's hop right into it here, all of this juicy goodness, with basically chronologically going through yesterday. A lot of this has been pieced together nicely by Crone at the CDBL Intel account, so I'll link that down below. And yes, okay, first of all, Jetli announces himself as a restricted free agent from Enigma 6. So let's have a look at this roster real quick. So Frosty and Jetli both rumoured to be out of the team right now. I'll talk about that down the line if it does come true, but it does seem Kismet, General and Godorex are going to be staying. Jetli's out the door. Apparently Frosty may also be out the door as well, but that's yet to be announced as of recording this video. Parzelion also announces himself as a free agent of this UYU team, an unrestricted free agent actually, which is a pretty big deal, potential to get picked up elsewhere, but, from what I've heard, maybe not the best communicator, maybe he doesn't play the game in the right way, at least the modern game. He was very good early in the season, of course, playing very slow, getting streaks. Nowadays, maybe a little bit more aggression would be required. Some people say maybe he's not the best possible teammate. But, whether he'll get another Pro League is yet to be seen, but I see it as unlikely. So, moving onwards here. This is what I heard. Breezy to Enigma 6 group. I heard this pretty likely earlier on in yesterday as well. And yes, it seems like minus Jetli plus Breezy from Elevate is a rumour that Enigma 6 are very much considering. So that was one thing that came out as well. And then, supposedly, UYU going to be picking up Blast and Saints instead of Zaptius and Royalty. And I can pretty much confirm that this is indeed true. Methods is staying on UYU, going to be joined by Blast and Saints of Midnight. So, as you can already tell, things are getting very, very complicated. By the end of this video, I will try and go through the rosters and paint a picture of what every team is looking like as of today. Things could still change, but I'm sure a lot of these are going to be pretty much set in stone for the time being. So, look, apparently this is what's going on with UYU, Blast and Saints in, and the Midnight roster is going to be very interesting. Supposedly, they are trying to get Frosty, and, as I say, we'll look at that in a second, because a lot of intriguing stuff to go through right here. So, then we had the following. Huke to Splyce coming out from sources on loan. I heard this as well before it was tweeted. So supposedly this is legitimate. From what I understand, Hastro really wants Huke to succeed. Of course, Huke has been on Team Envy for, however long, played with them in Halo when he was on there, and then he's been with them in Call of Duty for a couple of years. They're paying him bank. His buyout is massive. Somewhere between like $300,000 to $500,000. Somewhere in that range, I think, is his buyout, which obviously is crazy money. So it makes sense that Envy don't want to get rid of him. I talked about it yesterday, how there's no real reason for Envy to get rid of Huke now because of, they've played with him, they've kept him for so many years. They haven't won a championship with him yet in Call of Duty at the very least, which, means that what's the point getting rid of him now when he's really the biggest star player on your roster? But, he obviously wasn't happy with the team. The team needed drastic changes, and Envy probably in a pretty big shambles. I don't really know what roster changes they're going to be making here, but it seems like they're going to be keeping Aches and Silly, and I think Decimate. Pharaoh's out the door, though. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, it does seem Huke has also gone over to this Splyce team. Now, wow, this Splyce team could be deadly. This is a loan deal, so at the end of the season, Huke will be going back to his Envy contract. There's no way they're going to get rid of him that easily, but I know that Hastro really respects Huke and wants him to succeed. Clearly a very talented player. May not necessarily be playing the game the correct way or be the best teammate. That'll be interesting to see on Splyce, because now, if this Splyce team doesn't succeed, him back with, Temp from the Advanced Warfare days and also the World War II days on that Envy team, which didn't really work out with Classic and Slasher, which should have been very good as well. It was a reunification of a team that played back in Advanced Warfare and I think came second at one event, maybe even the World Finals or something like that. So if this doesn't work, people will really start to ask questions about Huke the player and whether, he can actually win a championship. But it's difficult to win championships nowadays. I think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for at least the time being. Still think he's a very good player. But of course, Splyce is a very fantastic team right now, in my opinion. They're going to get rid of Nolson, and that's going to be the trade. So Looney is on the team still. Aqua is going to be the main assault rifle. Then you've got Temp and Huke, joined by Jerd. And, I will go into more detail on this team when it is announced, if it is announced. I personally think it could be absolutely filthy. Not quite sure yet what the roles are going to be. My money is probably on Looney and Temp running the Maddoxes, and then Huke and Jerd on the SMGs. I also have reason to believe that in the coming weeks, before Miami, probably a couple of weeks from now, there is going to be some form of SMG buff. Not exactly sure to what degree it's going to be. I've heard a few different things, nothing that I can say for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's in the works from Treyarch, and they're trying to make it so that we see more 2 SMGs or 2 SORGs on a lot of maps, because right now the meta, you could say, is pretty stale. We've got a situation where we've got a lot of ICRs. The ICR thermal is supposedly going to be gentleman's agreemented from at least the respawns. That should make the viewing experience more pleasant on your eyes. But regardless, it looks like they're trying to create, this is Treyarch, a 2 SMG meta. So Huke and Jerd on your SMGs, Jesus, lads, like this is going to be something to behold, let's put it that way. So yes, this is highly rumoured. So this was earlier yesterday from Crone at the Intel account, putting out what, we saw at the current time. So yes, this is what I've heard as well. It comes along with what I've been hearing. So look, Splyce, Huke, that's going to be the change for Nolson. Enigma 6, Breezy and Mayhem, supposedly going to be the change. Jetly, 100% out. Frosty, supposedly the other one, and, a very interesting change, I'm sure. A lot of people didn't think they'd be getting rid of Frosty, let's put it that way, but it still seems like he will be in the Pro League. Maybe not on the best team, though. Then we've got Elevate. Now, wow. So, Elevate, Profizi, Emerys, and Whalers seem to be safe on the team. That's what I've heard. Of course, Skies is out the door. He's gone to LG, which we'll talk about in just a second. They announced their team. And also, of course, Breezy, now gone on to Enigma 6, seems to be the change that we're seeing right now. The rest of Elevate is going to be a very interesting situation. I don't really know who's going to be joining them right now. Heard a couple of names thrown around, the likes of Lacefield, but I can't say that for sure. Not so sure about Proto, and Spacely and Phantoms were very much interested in going to UYU. We'll talk about that in a second. Doesn't seem likely that they'll go on Elevate for now, but possible that Spacely might go back there. I know that Phantoms won't be, but possible that Spacely will, because of course he played on Elevate last year at Champs, came top 8. So they seem to like him over at that organisation. So UYU, Blaston States 100%, Phantoms a possible gap filler. I've heard this Phantoms is very, very likely indeed to be joining this team right now. So supposedly dropped off Evil Geniuses, him onto UYU. And then Envy, it's still very much up in the air what's going on with Envy right now. Nobody knows. Gunless is possible, but the likely it is he'll probably stay on the bench at LG because they're going to want too much money. But of course, if they are loaning out Huke, there's a fair bit of money in the back pocket for Envy, and they really need a good replacement for him if they're going to be championship contenders for my money. So maybe that's on the cards, but right now, Aches and Silly are going to be staying on the team, it seems. So is Decimate probably, and they might bring in someone like Assault, and maybe Gunless possible, but I honestly doubt that. So yeah, Midnight is going to be Zaptius and Royalty from UIU going on to Midnight. Supposedly Frosty also on this team. And then we had some interesting announcements regarding Units just a few seconds later. Shock's still at school or whatever the situation is. Mind Freak's not going to be a thing. And then when we talk about Brack to LG, we had this announcement. The new LG roster, we'll go through this in more detail in a couple of days' time. But yes, John and Slack staying on the SMGs. Skies is going to be the main ICR. Formal and Brack on the Maddoxes should be an upgrade on paper. Pretty scary stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing these guys in action. Of course, it really probably comes down to John and Slacked on the SMGs, how they will put up the figures, but definitely should be an upgrade on paper. It's an exciting thing to look at, but of course, it does mean that Gunless will not be in the team. So moving onwards, we had this come out. I heard this on Sunday night. This has been in the works for a long time by now. And yes, Alex for Shawnee is supposedly the change for Reciprocity. You know, this team on the whole, when it first formed, we always thought it was going to be too slow. Too many ARs on the team. And right now, Dylan is looking like one of the very best players in the game. But he plays at such a high tempo that there's only really Zed up there with him. A guy like Alex instead of Shawnee may bring that next level of aggression and speed that they need. And, you know, I've heard this for a few days. I think it will be quite likely at the current time. And this was another incredibly interesting change. Units supposedly going to be Rated Joe, still a duo, joined by Cammy, Weeman and Nolson. So Cammy and Weeman on Team War at Anaheim that didn't really do that well, I don't think, in the open bracket. Joined by Nolson, of course, just on Splyce. So this is an incredible team, not in terms of necessarily good or bad, but I know that Cammy has been, you know, Cammy MVP has been talked about as one of the next come-up players out of Europe in quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So then, yes, it was, you know, talked about later on by Crone that Phantoms to UIU is on the cards, very much on the cards from what I'm hearing as well. And then we have the following from Ferro talking about how he doesn't have a team yet, so let's just roll the clip.
You have a team or no? I do not have a team right now. I'm actually, I may make a comeback in the open bracket, bro. No bullshit.
So yeah, it seems like Ferro may well be working his way through the open bracket. And let's have a look here. UIU confirm that Ricky Achura is going to be their coach. I think he was coaching Elevate. He was even coaching Midnight, I think, earlier in the year. Drew, you know, one of the senior guys there, said he was very impressed with Achura when they had a chat about things. So, you know, this is a cool change for UIU. I think Achura is a useful pickup, of course. Difficult to say how good coaches are, but he definitely has had some good success so far this year, even though he may not be the biggest name. So that's that stuff out the way. Let's have a look back at the rosters, and I'll tell you, as far as I know right now, what's going on with each of these teams. So firstly, Enigma 6, General Kismet GodRx, joined by Breezy and Mayhem, I think is the team. So apparently that's going to be the 5. Now, Heretics is going to be this team minus Sakru plus Yakko. Supposedly, you know, Sakru's always had some attitude problems to some degree within the Spanish scene. He got a good chance to go on Heretics and it doesn't seem to have worked out for him. Apparently that's going to be the change. Maybe you Spanish guys in the comments can let me know if you've heard anything different or whether you think that's an upgrade or whatever's going on from your perspective. Now, Splyce, minus Nolson plus Huke is going to be the squad. So, yes, Huke and Jerd probably on the SMGs. Possible that Looney might try an SMG and then Huke will use a Maddox because he has been trying that a little bit lately, but probably just because Envy were in a shambles, they thought we'll just give that a go, why not? Didn't seem to work out for them, did it? And then we've got Units. So supposedly Joe Rated, joined by Weeman, Cammy, and who's the other one? Nolson, of course. So Bracker's gone to Luminosity. We'll talk about that in a second. Alex supposedly gone to Reciprocity. And this was something that I thought was interesting because, you know, the organization, there's no organization that owns this spot right now. So I was like, how come Joe and Rated get to just decide who they want to bring in where, you know, Bance and Alex don't necessarily, why can't they just say, oh, well, us two will have the spot and then you two can, you know, bugger off basically. And it makes sense now, if you think about it, that Alex probably has gone to Reciprocity because then Bance as an individual has no power if Joe and Rated want to stay together. So that's my assessment of the situation. So yes, Joe Rated, Weeman, Cammy, Nolson. Very, very interesting if that comes true. Well, we'll just have to see. So Reciprocity, as I say, minus Shawnee possible, plus Alex. We'll talk about that when it comes to it, but an interesting change. Probably makes sense to me on the surface, and yeah, you just gotta give credit to Quicker, you know, finding these players out of nowhere, bringing up, you know, Alex, Zed and Dylan played with them over the last course of the couple of years. So on Elevate here, Profizi, Whalers, Emery's is gonna be sticking. Skies and Breezy, of course, are out the door. Skies to LG, Breezy supposedly to Enigma 6. I'm not sure who's gonna be the rest on Elevate here, possibly Lacefield, but I really don't know about that for sure right now. We'll just have to see. So Luminosity, slacked John Formal, joined of course by none other than Skies and Bragg. We just saw that announced. Midnight, Llama God and Parasite are going to stay. Blaz, Lacefield and Saints I think are out the door. Therefore, Midnight are going to be bringing in Zaptius and Royalty from UYU alongside Frosty, I think is possible, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, Envy is in a weird situation. I think Ake, Silly and Decimate are going to stay. Ferrer and Huke are out for the time being at least. Joined by who really knows. Maybe Assault, but you know, you really need an SMG if you're going to do that, so you can't really have Assault and Gunless, even if you are going to try and get Gunless from somewhere, so really don't know what's going on with Envy. Evil Geniuses seems like it's going to be minus Phantoms plus Accuracy right now, and then UYU supposedly is going to be Methods. Okay, so Methods is the only one that stays from this roster. Methods, Blast, Saints, Phantoms, and then the fifth, apparently they were eyeing up between Spacely and possibly Classic. Not sure 100% which way it fell right now, not sure I can talk too much on that, but, you know, those are kind of the rumours that were going around, so take it with a grain of salt, of course, but I think that's quite likely for a lot of these teams going into tomorrow when things likely will start to be announced, maybe even tonight. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Leave your thoughts on this stuff down in the comment section below. Huke to Splyce, what do you think? Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you next time.